Thank you, and it's fantastic to be here today. As you see, it's a little sort of a strange journey I've taken into this sort of space of innovation and design that we do now at Telstra. I see our role within the Chief Technology Office. We're not the Chief Innovation Office. It's really important that that's not the case. At a big company like Telstra with 40,000 people, I think it's very important that you don't focus all of that design and innovation into one place. Because I think you miss out on all of the opportunities. So really what I want to try and do today is just tell a bit of a story about how we approach design and approach innovation at a sort of monolithic a company like Telstra. We suffer from that curse of incumbency very often, and clearly we need to avoid our own Kodak moments. So I really just want to talk about how we look to curate and drive better innovation across a company the size of Telstra. Now, we have Cecilia Hill in the back there, who probably many of you know or remember from her presentation last year. To save myself doing any work, I've just unashamedly stolen some of Cecilia's slides from last year, just to talk about the journey we're on. And this whole sort of design and innovation philosophy is something new to Telstra. Just 4 or 5 years ago now, we were still majority owned by the Australian government. We're full of sort of ex-bureaucrats waiting for their defined benefits plans to vest. We need to move on from that as a company to be relevant in the sort of the modern day and age. And the work from Cecilia and her team, and over the last year, setting up the design practice that we now have up here in Sydney. We have quite a large innovation lab and space down in Melbourne, and various other things that we've done that I'll talk to later to try and change really the culture within the company. More than anything. I said design is important, but I think design for me is only one little tiny part of what we need to try and do in the broader innovation space and how we nurture innovation at a huge company like Telstra. I might be a little bit controversial because I suspect there's a couple of consultants in the room today. Many big companies, the sort of first thing that you do, the CEO goes, "Oh, we need to be more innovative." It's what a common refrain. First thing you do is you ring up consultant A, get the checkbook out, and they write down the plan for you to be the world's most innovative company over the next 2 years. 2 years later, you've realised what a mess that is, and you get consultant B in to solve the mess that consultant A made for you. 2 years after that, consultant A comes back in to solve the mess that consultant B gave you. So to answer the question that we had this morning, how many, do we need any more consultants? Absolutely not. Please, and Telstra, no more. We've got more than enough already. One of the first things that I did when I moved into the innovation, the technology team, is clean all of them out. And really the reason I did that is I do fundamentally believe that as a big company, we need to start believing in ourselves a bit more. We need to work out what innovation means for us, not what innovation means for other people. So then the next thing I did is to clean out the bookshelf. So poor old Clay Christensen and Eric Rees, they were all straight out the door immediately. It's all very nice, and I love reading about mini mills and hard disk drives, but Telstra doesn't make mini mills. We don't use mini mills, and we don't make hard disk drives. So their story's only a tiny, tiny bit of relevance to what we do. We need to start understanding what is relevant to Telstra. And I say to all of you out there who want to be innovators, there's only one book you should have on your bookshelf, and it's 140 years old, and it's on The Origin of Species by Charles Darwin. Because that's where sort of, to my mind, true innovation can come in the natural world. It's a relatively binary, relatively binary outcome in the natural world. You innovate, you differentiate, you survive. If not, you get eaten. So there's some really, really powerful lessons, I think, that can be learnt out of the natural world and just evolution and how evolution works to drive differentiation, and probably a lot more informative than much of the other books you can read. And you can get it for free because it's out of copy right now as well. So when we start thinking about it, we sort of look at how we try to, as a company, think differently. There's many problems, there's many questions that we try to solve here. None of these are particularly new. Certainly anyone who's ever had the fortune/misfortune of working in a large organisation will recognise some of these. It's not easy. It's not easy at times. I'll tell you in Telstra, we know how to build a process around a process to define the next process that we need to implement as a process. But we need to try and get out of that fundamental mindset that we've had for probably 100 years. So where we've sort of come from this, and this is really still very much work in progress, and the management has started talking about this externally. We've been building this story internally, and it's really trying to rethink how we look at innovation for Telstra. What is important for Telstra around innovation and around design, and actually how we go about executing on it. Now, this is sort of specifically built for the business that we are in communications. But I hope, that's what I'm here today, to hope that there's some relevance to other businesses and other industries. So we start off at the bottom here with effectively the strategic imperatives that we need to fulfil, and these are probably unique to us. We need to drive productivity improvement all the time. We are in an industry where the products and services that we offer, many of them are increasingly commoditised. That means that the profitability of them is declining. We need to be obsessive about productivity. That's good for the business. That's also good for our customers. Frankly, who wants a Telstra truck to turn up and take 8 hours to install broadband in your home if it can do it in 2 hours? We save and the customers save. So it's an all-round win-win. Customer service nirvana. The next up is this whole customer insights and design thinking, and this comes to this the fundamental point about problem solving. We're not in the business of just creating ideas for the sake of ideas. We need to focus quite obsessively on exactly what customer problem are we trying to solve here, and how can we do a better job at solving it. So we spend a lot of time, and Cecilia's team spend a huge amount of time out there with customers, talking to customers from the biggest end of town all the way down to the tiniest guys that might be walking into the shop on a Saturday morning. How can we understand what your problems are and then work towards solving them? And I'm not going to pretend, if any of you are Telstra customers here, I ain't going to pretend we do it perfectly at the moment. We are on a journey, so I'd like to apologise. And if any of you have specific problems, Cecilia would love to address them later. And the third thing, because we are a technology company, the third thing is just to understand the long-term technology trends. This is our Kodak moment. This is what is the digital camera coming down the track that we need to be aware of, and we need to be smart about how we adapt to it. Now, on the back of that, and I'm going to flick through my build here because I don't like it, we don't think that there's one-size-fits-all approach to this. These problems are all very different. They're different scales. They're different scales of risk. They're different scales of opportunity. So we look to address all of these problems in a very different way, and that's everything from, I've named some of the ways and the platforms that we do that here within the company. That's everything from the tiniest little, effectively tactical problems. I've got a problem with the firmware on this router that I'm selling to some customers. Can anyone help? These little and someone goes, yes, I've got an update of that software I can send you. This is what I call the fixing the problems, and that can be quite innovative. You fix 1,000 problems in a year, you're actually starting to make a difference and move the needle. And we have a sort of an internal business improvement process that we grandiosely call T-Solve to do that. We have the sort of the pure innovation, and I'll talk about the innovation hub in a bit. This is an internal, crowdsourced, effectively a social innovation platform that we've built in-house to try and generate and collate and collaborate on ideas from within the company that are great innovations for our customers, new product, new services internally, and so I'll give a bit of detail on it later. We have the Meridian Q Beta. Now, some of you may have had the opportunity to go and visit the guys up in Paddington at the old Paddington Exchange in the Meridian building. Fantastic new facility that's Telstra built out there, and it's really incubation. These are tiny little Australian startup companies that we invest $60,000 in for 6%, so a very, very small end of the market, and we provide them mentoring and business development support to try and sort of create the great new products of the future. Next one here I call co-creation, and this is where partly partners but also tertiary institutes, and we made quite an important announcement in Canberra yesterday around a partnership that we now have with NICTA, the National ICT Australia business, which is a sort of collaboration between 22 of Australia's biggest universities. We're going to be working with a couple of other universities, UTS here in Sydney, Deakin in Melbourne at first, and then probably others going forward. Really the idea of that is to try and invest in world-leading primary research first and foremost, but also research that ultimately has some commercial benefit, commercial outcomes, which is good. It's going to be Australian focused only. We're not sort of looking out around the world, but it's really just I think another channel for Telstra to really focus on really early stage innovation in Australia and try and drive that differentiation. And then the final side is our ventures group, and this is a group which makes effectively private equity scale investments in companies, $5 to $10 million, $100 million companies, actually all around the world, some in Australia, many of them over in the US. I think one of them's out of Israel. I see this as part of the innovation story because, again, from a sort of corporate perspective, you have a buy versus build equation in all of this. So we look for some of those great innovative startup companies around the world and make a financial commitment to them and support them as their businesses develop. Now, I'll just because it's something that we built and spent a lot of time working on. I'll just give a little bit of colour on the Innovation Hub, which I think is really internally, changing the culture, and that's really what this is. It's a social media tool internally, and it was built in-house. We launched it in August last year. So in 9 months, 7,000 people within Telstra have signed up to use the hub. We've generated 726 ideas from those 7,500 people. About 10 of those ideas have already been commercialised. We've probably got a pipeline of another probably 10 to 15, which will be commercialised over the next 6 months. It's we didn't really know what we were getting into when we built the thing. We knew we needed to change the culture. We knew we had the support from the CEO, or more, he was beating me up every day. What are we doing that's innovative, and what are we doing? But we've got the buy-in from the very top, and what we're seeing through this real culture change here is the buy-in from the bottom. We get fantastic ideas from all across the company. There's a guy called Jason who works in our store in Dubbo on a Saturday morning, just on a Saturday morning, who's come up with a fantastic idea about how we can do a better job at communicating the capabilities of some of our devices and products into the bush. And it's using the experience of just someone on the ground and how we apply it. We've got ideas from graduates in IT that are being rolled out to our service delivery teams, the guys in trucks. We've got a 40-year veteran up in Newcastle who's been driving a truck for 40 years, who's come up with a great idea that's being implemented into our next generation of the broadband gateway that we put in your home. So fantastic ideas from all across the business, and really this is just a way of bringing people together. We gamify it a bit. There's an investment capability in there, so you invest in the ideas, and we pay you dividends and this sort of thing, just to drive the to drive the engagement from across the company. It's not, I have to admit, it's a little Orwellian at times how we've constructed it, because the reality is, when we start putting an idea, and I don't care whether you're David Thodey, the CEO, or Jason in Dubbo, your idea is of equal value, your voice is of equal value. You make a comment on an idea, you invest in an idea, there's no differentiation. Clearly, as we progress, at some point, someone needs to pitch in some money, there needs to be a business case and all that. All of those encumbrances you have in a big company before you can get anything done. But what we try to do with this is keep people out of keep most people out of that process as much as we possibly can. So we keep the ideas in that initial generation phase and the collaboration phase for as long as we can, and then at the last minute we sort of step in and get them through the validation and out there and commercialised. So really, as we've gone through this, and it's like that's a bit of a quick tour of some of the things that we're doing within Telstra. It sort of occurred to us that we can go out there and read 101 different ways that we can innovate and what we have to do to innovate. So I thought I'd share my 10 thoughts on this, and this is really what we've learned over the last couple of years in terms of innovating at Telstra, and perhaps some lessons around innovating in a big company. They're not ordered 1 to 10. They're all sort of equal value. Maybe I'll just 5 minutes and 39. I'm getting the button's still green, so I'm good to go. I'll talk about a couple of them because I think they are important. Number one probably is the most important thing, and that's this democratization of innovation. This is not about what the CEO thinks. This is actually what about everyone thinks. So everyone's voice in the company, has to be the same, because everyone sees problems that our customer has. Everyone has ideas about solving them. We need to give people the ability to share and escalate those ideas and for the company to execute on them. This concept of dimensionless innovation as well, which again in a big company is really, really important. We can boil the ocean at Telstra if we really want to on some of the smallest, most trivial things. So what I mean by dimensionless, you have to make sure that the resource that you bring to bear in terms of financial or human capital, the resource you bring to bear on an idea is commensurate with the size of the opportunity. So we need to stop spending years of our lives delivering tiny, tiny little product opportunities. Just to give you some context of the scale of this, Telstra's revenue is about $25 billion a year. So in order to move the needle by 1%, we've got to generate $250 million of incremental revenue. Now I could get a box of postit notes. We could, over the next 4.5 minutes, come up with dozens of ideas for $1 million, $2 million opportunities for Telstra. That's really, really easy. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, but what we need to make sure that if I've got a $2 million opportunity, I deliver it on it in a fortnight. We don't spend 6 months going through a very long and laborious product development strategy. When we come up with a $100 million idea, that's when the whole company engages and we take the time to get it done right. Being free to fail, and anyone who's sort of worked out there in smaller companies will get this intrinsically really, really hard in a big company. And we are surrounded by product managers who have a target to hit every year. You miss your target, you're fired. It's sort of as simple as that. We need to change that approach to performance internally to encourage people to think a little bit differently and be willing to take some risks and get things wrong from time to time. And we celebrate through the Innovation Hub, we celebrate ideas that have gone nowhere, because some of them are fantastic ideas. They may be nowhere because technology is immature, because someone else has got there first. We shouldn't be shy to say these are still very good ideas. We have to be customer focused. Yeah, I meant that earlier. I said that earlier. That's sort of probably goes without saying. We need to continue to iterate the ideas. Don't try to get it right first time. The Innovation Hub itself is in beta. I think we've just uploaded to Amazon version something like 230 of the code over 9 months. You just need to tweak it and keep changing your products. You need to focus on reality before perception. This is one that my marketing team's not entirely convinced by. But it's really, 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 really easy to claim victory on innovation way too soon. So I have this, we have this opportunity in Telstra, we have this ambition in Telstra to be seen as one of the most innovative companies in Australia. What we cannot afford to do is declare victory too soon on that. We're still right at the beginning of that journey, and I think we have a long way to go. And it's really important that we don't declare victory too soon, because we'll just look like a bunch of idiots. I've got to be ambitious, take some risks. Again, very risk averse. Big companies are, so we need to look at that risk and opportunity profile. I spend bizarrely a lot of time with our chief risk officer within Telstra, which is perhaps a little concerning for me, but it's really, really important that you understand the risk profile of what we're doing. Change the culture, nurture the culture. We get around problem solving, not ideation. It's ideation, to me, is a dirty word. It's a sackable offence to use that in my team. We've got to understand what the problem is that we're trying to solve. Spend your time worrying about the customer and what the customer problem is, and then the ideas will come easily. And finally, solutions are non-unique. You shouldn't be ashamed. Someone else has probably had the idea. So what you need to do is you need to execute it better. You need to be in the market first. You need to differentiate in other ways. So don't always assume that the innovation has to be the grand and the new. That's very, very high risk, and the chances of success are very, very low. I mean, think Apple. People still, and I've heard it a couple of times this morning, still celebrate Apple as this great innovative company of our time. People often forget that Apple's been bust 2 or 3 times over its history. When you're trying to make those big step changes, the risk is huge. Now, as a company like Telstra, we cannot afford to go bust by making a big bet. And the reason we can't is because of the plus one, which is is really, really to me important here. And finally, it's my hook into the prosperity comment, that the observation that sort of the theme permeating today. We've got to remember about the shareholders. We're a publicly listed company. We can't just do this stuff because it's fun, it's cool, and it's a nice hobby. We have to make sure that at the end of it there is a benefit to the business out of it. And with 3 seconds to go, that is my lot. Just a couple of thoughts to leave you with where my head's at on innovation. Thanks, guys.